We are going to be covering how to use the actions that I provided with the course in this video. So to find your actions, they're usually under this little play button after you've loaded them. If you don't see that, again, you can come up to Window and just make sure that Actions is clicked. So I brought this image in from Adobe Camera Raw, and the only adjustments I made to it were I brought the shadows up and just brought the exposure up just a little bit. I didn't want to do a whole lot because I just want to show you guys what you can do with the actions. I gotta find them here. All right, there they are. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the HDR action. I'm going to hit play. All right, and now we've got two different adjustment layers here, and you can kind of toggle them on and off to see what they do. This one down here is the HDR effect itself. And I can adjust the opacity of that, which I'm going to do because I think it's too strong. So I'm just going to add in a little bit. And remember, I built in layer masks to all of them, so you can always paint it off if you didn't want it on a part. And this is a levels adjustment here. So if I wanted to say, bring the highlights up just a little bit more, I could do that. Or, add in a little bit more shadows. I can do that. I'm going to go ahead and add in a contrast pop. And then I can adjust the opacity of that as well. I just want a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and flatten, Command-Shift-E. And then I'm going to go on to some of these painting ones. So I'm going to go into Paint on Highlights. I'm going to start there. All right. So now you can't see that it's done anything, but there's an adjustment layer and there is a mask on top of it. So now you can paint it in with your white brush. So make sure you have your brush selected and that it's set to white. You can toggle between the two with D and X. And you're going to want to make sure your hardness is probably all the way down, unless you're trying to get a real even line. I have my opacity set to 100 because I can come over here and then control the opacity of the layer. So I just prefer to do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and paint in some highlights here. Really a little bright there, so I'm going to go take that part back. All right, I don't think I'm going to do them on the sky, or if I did, I could just do like, let's say 20%. All right. So now you can kind of see over here where you've painted it on. If you really wanted to see, you could hit the backslash button and then it's going to pop up where you haven't painted is the spots in red, and where you've painted are the clear. So if you saw that you kind of missed some spots, you could go back with your brush and get those spots. And then you just hit backslash again to make it go back. So then I'm going to do the paint on shadows. And same concept here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of use my brush, paint in some shadows here. All right, now I can kind of come over here and tweak these. I think the shadows are a little too much, so I'm going to set it to 50%. And let's see what the highlights, if I want to keep them. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to try and switch the greens to make them a little less yellow. So I'm going to hit the blue-green button. All right, that did that. And I'm just going to adjust the opacity of that because I didn't want it to go that far. All right, there we go. I'm going to go to Paint on Saturation. I'm going to click that. Come over here with my white brush at 99 and just kind of paint the areas. Like I really want these rocks, the colors in these rocks to pop. All right, that looks really good. Let's see, what else would I maybe do here? Could warm it up or cool it down, but I actually think the white balance is pretty good here. I think the only thing that I would really, actually there's a couple things. I'm gonna do a levels and vibrance adjustment. And then that does a little bit of vibrance there, and then it also does the levels here. I can come ahead and make more, adjust the opacity of that. All right. And now I'm going to go ahead and flatten. Some of these actions won't work once you have a whole bunch of stuff open because some of them require you to duplicate the background layer. So if you run into that and it's not working, then you just need to come and flatten, which is Command-Shift-E. Now I just want to run my high pass filter. All right, you can see it's kind of add that dreamy look to it. And then I'm just gonna adjust the opacity of it just a little bit. And then I can kind of see over here where it looks kind of cool in the shadows. So I'm wondering if I didn't do warm shadows, if that would make a difference. Let's see what that looks like. Yep, that warmed up my shadows nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that. I could also try the warm highlights. Just adjust the opacity of that. Then if I, wanted it to have kind of a matte look, I could run that action. But I'm not going to do that one here. I think I would maybe like to darken a little couple areas. So I'm going to hit Paint on Darkness. Come over here with my white brush, and I'm just going to darken it over here in this corner. All right. So with the actions, go ahead and move this over here. We were able to take the image from this to that. So, I mean, I really recommend using the actions that can kind of speed up your workflow, but I also, in all my videos, I show you guys how to do all of these steps. And I think that's a really important and fundamental part of learning how to use Photoshop, is to not just run the actions, but to actually know what you're doing, so that you can create your own actions and create your own steps as well. I'm gonna go ahead and edit one more picture with the actions. All right. I think I'm gonna start here with the levels and see if that gives me enough of what I'm looking for there. So I'm not a big fan of that. So what I'm gonna do is select these and put them in the trash and try my HDR action here. All right, that's a little bit better. This is too strong though. So I'm gonna come back and just adjust the opacity of this. And then I can click on this, remember, and it'll bring up the properties, and I can make my own adjustments to this levels layer. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, if I really wanted these fall colors to pop, I can hit my fall pop button, run that action. Now you can see it's really made my colors more fall-like, brighter. If I thought it went too far, you can always adjust the opacity of it. Kind of like it where it's at, though it looks pretty good. All right, I'm going to go to my Paint on highlights. And now I'm going to come over here with my white brush, remember on my black mask, and I'm going to do the waterfall at 50% because it's so much brighter than the rest of my image. Then I'm going to put my brush back up to 99 and kind of come over here and hit some of the other areas, get some of the other highlights in my image. These are already pretty bright, so I don't think I'm going to run my brush over that. Okay, and then I can come onto my paint on shadows and kind of do the same. This is already pretty shadowed here, so I, drop my opacity here to 50. All right, now I can come over here and, make adjustments to the individual levels. That is my highlights. They look pretty good. This is my paint on shadows. Might just adjust that just a smidge. There, that looks really good. Now, if I wanted to paint on some blur onto the waterfall, I can go ahead and hit that. Let's zoom in here. We'll just kind of add a little bit more blur to that. Helps if I have my white brush selected. And then I can also kind of blur these leaves here if I wanted, kind of give it more of a softer effect there. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and flatten here because I've got a bunch of stuff going on there. Going to do my contrast pop. And then I'm gonna adjust it because it's a little too much. If I wanted to run the matte one, I think it might look good on this. And then you can always adjust the opacity of that. This would maybe be a fun one to try the oil paint filter on. So let's go ahead and run that. This one you do need to make sure you're flattened on because it does do it on another layer. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. It's kind of giving it a painterly effect. Then you can go ahead, of course, make adjustments to it. I just kind of want it on there just to soften, not necessarily to make it look like an oil painting. I'm going to flatten. And then the only other thing that I could maybe do is play around with some more of my colors by doing, like if I hit the warm highlights, see what that does. There, that really made that pop. So I'm going to go ahead and probably stop there because I think it looks pretty good. But let's go ahead and see what we've done. But we started with that, and with just the actions, we were able to bring it to that. Quite the change. All right, the only action I haven't really covered here are the painting on of the skies. So I'm just going to go ahead and run one of these and show you. Of course, you don't see it here because they're going to paint it on. So now I'm going to go ahead and just grab my brush and paint on my pink sky. And you can always adjust the opacity of it. So I think like just a little bit looks good here. So that's the pink sky. You can paint on a yellow sky. And then this one I call paint on punchy sky. Just kind of adds in some more contrast and kind of makes it bluish purple. And then, you adjust the opacity of it. So those are the sky ones. Let me just look through here and make sure I've covered most of them. Warm it up and cool it down. This is just a general to warm up your whole image or to cool it down. These specific ones are just for your highlights or just for your shadows, and this is for cooling and then warming. And then there's also the sharpen here one that I didn't cover in case you want to sharpen your images some more before you save them. All right, and that's how you edit with the actions. If you have any questions, just go ahead and leave them in the comments.